Let's go.
Then after you have great coaches, you get great players, you have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. The regular season has finally ended for the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders win. The Raiders finish the season with an 8-9 record. The Raiders ended up beating the Denver Broncos 27-14. This is now 4 straight years of sweeping the Denver Broncos, and AP finishes the regular season with a personal record of 5-4 ever since he took over the job over Josh McDaniels. And today I just wanted to talk about my thoughts on the season overall as a whole, and do I think what we've seen thus far in this year with Antonio Pierce, is this enough for him to have won the job for the head coaching position moving into the 2024 regular season? Now look, when it comes to my thoughts on the season as a whole, coming into this season, look, I didn't really expect us to make the playoffs, so it doesn't really hurt me as bad that we weren't able to make the playoffs. Towards the end, after we beat Kansas City, you definitely kind of felt like, okay, if you can beat the Colts, there's a good chance you can beat the Broncos, and then maybe, just maybe, we're able to run the table and sneak into the playoffs, but that just didn't come to fruition for us. But even though I didn't expect us to make the playoffs, there's a couple things, before the season that I wanted to see from this team in order for me to kind of feel like it was a successful season. The first one is I did want to see improvement compared to last year. The Raiders last year were 6-11. This year we're 8-9. So that's a 2-game improvement. So we definitely saw improvement in that aspect. I wanted to see an improvement in this defense, and boy, did they exceed my expectations. Not only did this defense improve, but it was just drastically better than the defense in the last 5 years or so. This is arguably the best defense we've seen in the last 20 years, and you definitely got to give a lot of credit to Patrick Graham. Also, you got to give Antonio Pierce a little bit of credit as well, because even when Josh McDaniels was here, the defense was still good, but ever since McDaniels left, it seemed like Antonio Pierce let Patrick Graham a little bit more loose, and after that, this defense took a whole nother level. The defense at times looked dominant. I also wanted to see our young rookies get involved in this season, have an impact. When it comes to the rookies, we didn't see a whole lot of rookies really have a huge impact. Michael Mayer struggled early on, but down the stretch, he did a lot better, and his absence was definitely noted in these last few weeks. But besides that, not a whole lot of rookies that were able to get involved in a big way. Jacorian Bennett eventually ended up getting benched. Tyree Wilson struggled, even though he started to get a little bit better towards the end of the season. So ideally, I wanted to see the rookies play a little bit better, but the last thing I did want to see from this season, and we did eventually get it, was I wanted the Raiders to finally beat the Kansas City Chiefs. It just had been too long that the Raiders were just getting punked against the Chiefs. Time in and time out, the Chiefs have dominated the AFC West for like the last 8 years or so. So I thought the Raiders definitely should have made it an emphasis to get a win over your arch rival, punch the bully back in the mouth, and the Raiders did just that with Antonio Pierce on Christmas Day, getting his signature win on the road against Kansas City. And just in the fashion that we beat them was just so sweet to watch. We were able to beat up Patrick Mahomes. We were able to get after him. And I think Antonio Pierce, the one thing that you love to see from this guy is he's really kind of brought back that Raider mentality to this football team. The team is playing very physical. They're a hard-hitting, hard-nosed football team, and that has directly manifested into the defense. You see this defense, they're coming up, they're making tackles, they're getting big hits. The defensive line was able to come alive. Max Crosby, Malcolm Koonce were getting to opposing quarterbacks. And really the one thing that was just missing all season long was the offense. Now, what really sucks for us is that Our former head coach, Josh McDaniels, was supposed to be the guy that was in charge of the offense. All the players on offense is his type of personnel. And although we got rid of McDaniels and Mick Lombardi, at the end of the day, we're still running a lot of the same concept and plays from Josh McDaniels. Once you're in the middle of the season, it's too late to completely change the playbook. You're just going to have to work with what you got. You're going to have to make adjustments. The offense did look a little bit better without Josh McDaniels, but it still needs a whole lot of improvement. The quarterback position is still a big question mark for this team. The offensive coordinator as well. And really, the way I see this team is I think we have a good football team overall. The defense looks so much better. I think we need to run it back with Patrick Graham, but it's just really the offense that needs to be revamped. We need a new offensive coordinator. We're going to need a new quarterback. Ideally, I want a mobile quarterback. And really, this just touches to my next point is, do I think Antonio Pierce has done enough to get the job? Do I think they should hire Antonio Pierce? And really, I'm not going based off of today's victory over the Denver Broncos. I expected us to get this victory. It's cool to sweep your rival once again, but at the end of the day, let's be honest, this game was meaningless. It doesn't really change anything for us, just that now our draft pick isn't as good as it would have been if we would have lost. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change a whole lot in my opinion. What I've seen from Antonio Pierce is I definitely think we should hire Antonio Pierce for next season. Now, Antonio Pierce is not a guy that I would hire to like a 4 or 5 year deal, but I think he definitely deserves at the bare minimum a 1 to 2 year deal to kind of see what he can do with his team. He can bring in his own type of staff, his own offensive coordinator, and let them handle the offense. And Antonio Pierce can keep doing what he does, and that's just manage the team, motivate the team. And that's where we would run it back with current interim GM Champ Kelly. I think Champ Kelly has shown a lot of good things. I think Champ Kelly is a very interesting prospect for the GM role. A couple years back when Ziegler hired him as the assistant general manager, I thought Champ Kelly wasn't going to stay here too long. I thought eventually a team was going to hire him as the general manager, and crazy enough, it might be the Raiders that hire him as a GM. I think he can do a good job for us assembling the roster, but we're just gonna have to see what happens. I mean, me personally, I want Antonio Pierce. If it's not AP, I can see why certain people would be very interested in getting Jim Harbaugh in here. The guy definitely has an amazing track record, and you could technically argue that he's a safer pick than Antonio Pierce, but I will also say you get a guy like Harbaugh, you also are going to have to commit to him big time. I mean, think about it. If Mark Davis was willing to give John Gruden a 10-year contract, if he was even able to give Josh McDaniels a 6-year contract, even though McDaniels never had a proven track record as a head coach, if he's able to give him a 6-year contract, what do you think he's going to have to give Jim Harbaugh? You're going to have to commit to him. At that point, I'm pretty sure Harbaugh going to want to reassemble the roster. We might be headed into a rebuild if Harbaugh gets hired. I'm also not convinced that Patrick Graham would stay on this staff if Harbaugh gets hired. And at the end of the day, look, I think a lot of us as fans too are just assuming that Harbaugh wants to be a Raider. I mean, first, we don't even know if he's going to make his return to the NFL. And even if he does want to return to the NFL, I don't think it's just a clear foregone conclusion that he's going to come to the Raiders. I think he's going to look at all his different options. I think he's going to weigh them out. I think you can make just as good an argument that he would prefer going to the Chargers over the Raiders. And not only that too, I mean, a big question mark with the Raiders is we don't have a quarterback. And with us winning today as well, I mean, maybe that doesn't excite Harbaugh as much now, because now the Raiders are going to have the 13th overall pick, which makes it a little bit harder to get the quarterback you want in this year's draft, as I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that go early in the top 10. So more than likely, if he wants to go that route and draft a young quarterback, this is the time to do it. And you're probably going to have to get him early, which would likely mean we're going to have to give up a lot of draft capital to move up. But ultimately, we'll see how things play out throughout these next couple weeks. We'll see how Harbaugh does in the national championship game. And there's a lot riding in the national championship game as well. And ultimately, let's see what ends up happening with Harbaugh. And if ultimately he doesn't end up making his return to the NFL, to me, there's no doubt that it should be Antonio Pierce, in my opinion. But the start of the offseason for the Raiders has officially begun. It's going to be a very crucial offseason for us, as I think the team is close, but we have to make key decisions to be able to take that next level. There's going to be a lot of things to talk about throughout these next couple months, and I'm very excited for it. Overall, I think it was a good season. I'm pretty sad that it ended, as the season went pretty fast, and I will say, just from an overall entertainment standpoint, I mean, it was a much better season this year than it was last year under Josh McDaniels. The first 8 games of the season were rough, but luckily Mark Davis heard us as a fan base, and he made the move to go with Antonio Pierce. And to me, ever since Antonio Pierce has been here, at the very least, I can legitimately say I had a lot of fun watching this team. I love the spirit of the team. I love the identity. I love the way we've been playing, especially on the defensive side of the football. And hopefully we can continue that moving forward into 2024 with Antonio Pierce as the full-time head coach. But Raider Nation, those are my thoughts and opinions on the season and Antonio Pierce in general. I definitely want to get your guys' feedback as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Anybody that's new to the channel and you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.